Hi, and thank you for joining a Family Leadership Design Collaborative video. Today I'm honored to present Maisie Chin. She is the Executive Director and co-founder of Cadre in South Los Angeles. Maisie, could you tell us a little bit about what community wellness and education justice means at Cadre?
Sure, I probably don't have time to get into it as much as I would like, but when Cadre started, it was one thing. 15 years, 17 years later, 15 years later, it's another. And as we acknowledged in December, the process of figuring this out is just as much a part of the definition. And for us at Cadre, a lot of building the collective has really been probably most fundamental and transcendent through all of our years. One of our founding core parents often talks about going from me to we, or I to we. And I'm starting there because I think it's the most profound way I can describe and undergird how much we've been working for racial justice inside the schools, but also, acknowledging that there's equally as much exclusion and dehumanization of parents of students, and that dehumanization is what precludes most of the engagement that we all desire. And so to take that on, kind of walk right into the eye of the storm, has meant that our parents also have to build a much more collective sense. So not just individual empowerment, if you will, but also a real strong practice of collectivity that is very difficult to do in South LA with all the racial competition and tension that undergird this community, with all the demographic changes in the last 20 years, where it went from primarily an African American Black community to almost 60-75% Latino, and 90% in most of our schools. And with all of that being said, there is an incredible, there are a lot of tensions here that almost preclude a lot of these definitions. I mean, we may have wellness, we may have education justice, but it means profoundly different things for both communities. And so when we're organizing parents, we're doing our best to actually have our parents' stories forge a brand new meaning of what justice and what wellness means. And we're still in the process of that. But what I would say is really that the collectivity is really the transcendent value and property, I guess, if you will, of everything that we've really talked about, is where people feel healthy enough, well enough, secure enough to actually lean on each other, let each other in, build community, build relationships, and really look at systemic change together rather than apart.
Thank you. Very profound words, Maisie. And I was wondering, could you tell us maybe a next practice or two that you see emerging out of Cadre?
Well, I think we're actually, what I said to you just now about the collectivity is really where we're at. I mean, it is our next, and even though we've been pursuing it for many, many years, I think we're just now figuring out how to really do it. So in many ways, the collectivity that we practice is based on making sure that there isn't any one parent or one group's advancement or progress at the expense of the other. And so, for instance, we are most well known for changing and leading this movement to end the school to prison pipeline, which has resulted in a lot of changes to school discipline policies and a huge amount of attention paid to racial disparities in school discipline. But we are often the thorn in everyone's sides because we are also saying that all of this progress as touted is often at the expense still of schools serving Black African American children and or being welcoming to Black African American parents. And in South LA, most of these schools, if they're 70 to 95% Latino, a lot of these changes have come without examining underlying culture and practices and exclusion. It's just not suspending kids. And so while we could celebrate that if we wanted to, we actually don't. We use it to propel us forward and actually really look at how parents are still excluded, how parents have led this work but are still excluded from its implementation, from its evaluation, from its day-to-day sort of making sure it's happening. And, in addition, our next practice in that is really seeing parents being able to collectively coach educators. And what I mean by that is really engage in their own transformation so that when they challenge teachers to transform, because that is what's going to be required, that they'll be able to hold that space and hold that ground much more vibrantly than before, because they'll be engaged in their own. So we at Cadre are focused on supporting our parents and coaching each other, dealing with self-examination, looking at both individual and collective practices, and then, acknowledging the healing and the trauma, all of it that needs to go into kind of being your best self. And then with that, hopefully rigorous, understanding of self and transformation, that our parents can also, engage teachers and administrators completely differently, as well as their own children. But, the vision is that when push comes to shove, when the rubber meets the road, and a parent is face to face with an educator who is resistant and standing in all their resistance about acknowledging either their bias or their judgment of a child, and not wanting to do what our parents know they're supposed to be doing, that in that moment of struggle where most people just go their separate ways, that our parents can be the ones that coach towards a breakthrough. So that one-on-one moment, hopefully aggregated over many, a number of times, can really change the relationship between South Lake parents and schools, which is fundamentally what we've been aiming for since our beginnings.
Oh, thank you so much, Maisie. Do you have any parting thoughts that you'd like to share with us today?
No, well, I have one, which is that I do think that in our context where we sit, as a community-based organization doing this practice, if you will, we are often quite on our own. Most of the folks who do anything related to parents, as we all know, it's quite status quo at best, and maybe, reforming and tinkering with the status quo. And so we really find ourselves sort of trying to break some new ground as far as just walking straight into the tension and power struggle between our parents and the schools, and to really take that on as the work. And, it's a lonely place at times, but I do think we're trying to develop a practice. And one of our FLDC collaborative partners, I think, on another video conference, noticed that we were talking about something that was really like metacognitive. And that's what he kind of, I believe it was Derek who called it that. And I think that, the more I let that turn over in my mind, I do think we're sort of trying to create the conditions for our parents to sort of choose how they want to be, but also be able to be outside of themselves to figure out how to build themselves to be the people they want to be in those interactions. And so I just want to acknowledge that, one of the partners helped me certainly see it and recognize that we are trying to do that. And in many ways, changing these relationships and looking at them critically is what we're supporting our parents in doing.
All right. Thank you so much, Maisie.
You're welcome. You're welcome.